She was tasked to control the border. How was she done?
The vice president doesn't. The vice president doesn't control the border.
They
There's
get
agencies.
they get portfolio projects from the president. She was given the portfolio project of the border. How was she done?
So I have a question about the name of the tour. Could you tell me what you mean by brainwashing?
Yeah, I mean, traditionally on college campuses, you are being brainwashed, and by brainwashing, you don't allow dissident ideas, different perspectives or worldviews, and typically on campuses, you'll learn some of the worst, most parasitic ideas imaginable. So,
Well, even so, I would argue that brainwashing is a little bit of a harsh term. My parents lived in the Soviet Union. My grandparents lived in the Soviet Union. My great-grandparents narrowly avoided.
Campuses are very similar to what's happened in the Soviet Union.
They are not.
Well, so let me ask you a question. On most campuses, is this kind of discourse invited and allowed? In most of your campuses, would you say that if you are a conservative, do you get graded fairly?
Yeah.
Do you guys get graded fairly? Raise your... That's Soviet-style intimidation, right? Disagree, punishment.
That's not Soviet-style intimidation. You know what Soviet-style intimidation is?
Well, the next step would be like, I don't know, calling the whole country garbage. Half the country garbage.
That's not what the Soviets did. Are conservatives getting sent to gulags?
Well, actually, Steve Bannon went to federal prison. Peter Navarro went to federal prison. Donald Trump faced 700 years in federal prison. There are 280 January 6th pretrial prisoners right now for nonviolent offenses right now. And by the way, those are like similar to gulags, awful conditions. So it's actually, this country is much more like the Soviet Union than you might actually lead to believe. Right?
No, I mean, okay, sure. You have a couple examples of some people who, high-profile conservatives who were sent to federal prison.
I can keep on going, by the way. Douglas Mackey went to jail for making a meme. Do you know who Douglas Mackey is? You might not.
No, I don't.
Douglas Mackey went to federal prison. Is going to federal prison for making a meme in the 2016 election. We don't respect freedom of speech anymore. We don't respect dissident voices. And by the way, don't take my word for it. This is why Elon Musk and Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard have left the Democrat Party, and they say the Democrat Party is a party of Soviets and a party of totalitarians. So it's not just Charlie Kirk saying this; it's former Democrats. And yes, of course, the Soviet was a more extreme version of it, but that's where we are headed. We're a country where if you have certain politics, you have a higher likelihood of going to jail.
Well, let me ask you something. In order for, I would say that brainwashing, it can't happen overnight. It can't happen in 4 years. The fact that we have essentially alternating terms between the parties, there's no way to systematically establish something within 4 years.
You're right. It would take sending somebody to K through 12 education and then to college to get them brainwashed. We don't have anything like that in this country.
What happens in K through 12? What happens in
in most public schools in this state across the country? You're told to hate the country. You're told that America's systemically racist. You're not taught who Thomas Jefferson is, or James Madison, or John Jay, or the Federalist Papers.
Well, that's simply false. Name a school where they don't tell you who Thomas Jefferson is.
Do you think they teach Thomas Jefferson as a hero or a villain in most public schools across the South?
Who would you say Thomas Jefferson is?
Well, I mean, Thomas Jefferson was America's third president and the author of the Declaration of Independence and an American hero.
Is there a gray area? There must be a gray area. You can't say, oh, he's definitively a hero or he's definitively a villain.
Well, actually, I mean, hold on. Yes, of course he did things that were bad, but he helped found the greatest country ever to exist in the history of the world. That's pretty heroic.
So would you say that you have to... Would you say that you...
But yes, of course, you mentioned the things he did wrong, but in history, you must understand people in the context of the times of which they live. And the context of the time of which he lived was widespread. He actually released the slaves at the end of his life. And that's one example of many, by the way. But the point is this, is that the emphasis on trying to get a generation to hate the country, what Thomas Jefferson did is he gave you a free society that your parents liked so much that they left the Soviet Union and came to. Thank you, Thomas Jefferson. That's probably worthy of hero status.
I'm not saying that he's entirely a villain either. I'm saying that there's a gray area, and you say, "Oh, well, do they teach him as a hero or a villain?" It doesn't matter.
But everyone, no, hold on. First of all, they don't. Just so we're clear, they are removing any reference to Thomas Jefferson in curriculum as if he's anything good at all. They say that he shouldn't even be considered as someone worthy. Monticello is now littered with slave references, saying that Thomas Jefferson was this awful person.
Well, of course it's littered with slave references. Of course Monticello, you can't just erase the part of history that you don't like.
No, erase or emphasize. You see, when we emphasize over people's heroic accomplishments, what you're doing is you're diluting the triumph of their contribution to the society, right? And so, okay, yeah, happy to mention it. But can you also mention that A lot of people in history owned slaves, and very few of them started the greatest country ever to exist in the history of the world. And by the way, every society has owned slaves up into America, but America started the end of slavery, thanks to people like Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, James Madison, John Jay, etc. So what is brainwashing? Brainwashing is not letting the other side of the story be told. And I have a serious question. Do you think most college kids, maybe at this campus, yes, could even tell me the preamble of the Declaration of Independence?
No.
Okay. Do you think that they can name, how many articles of the Constitution are there?
5.
7. No, it's not Trivial Pursuit, right? But I mean, the point is that most people don't know anything about their country. They know nothing about their country. Okay? Yet they know a lot about how America is systemically racist, and they know a lot about how like trans people are like being marginalized, and they can like repeat that climate change is an existential threat to America.
Well, repeating that,
humanity.
repeating one sentence is different from repeating the preamble of a constitution. Do you have the constitution memorized?
Well, pretty close.
Pretty close. Well, let me ask you something. Does memorizing the preamble?
No, not memorize. I said first. I said the Declaration, but that's a separate issue. But
no,
the point is that
no, you didn't.
I'm pretty well, okay. Fine, I can do both if you want me to do both. One
Well,
of the
I don't
forcing
want you
events
to
comes
recite it to me,
necessary
I'm just
for
asking.
one people to dissolve the political bands that have tied them to another, driving from the equal station, driving the power that. You want me to keep going or
no?
Like,
You're good.
okay, God, thank you. But yes, so again, this is not Trivial Pursuit. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but the point is this: our education system de-emphasizes the brilliance of America. It makes you feel ashamed to be an American patriot. It prioritizes the most rubbish line of thinking on these parasitic mind ideas, which is involved in brainwashing. Exhibit A, everybody around you thinks they're graded differently because they're conservative. And that is using force to not allow dissident opinions, which is a Soviet tactic. It is totalitarian in nature, right?
Well, in that phrasing, yes, but
okay, so maybe
I would say
maybe you are being people are being brainwashed. Let me ask a question on the audience. If you guys spoke out with the Trump hat in class, do you think you'd be graded differently or down?
Yes. Graded by whom? What do y'all mean by that?
So these are your classmates telling you that they can't wear a hat of someone who probably will become president, hopefully on Tuesday, and was president once again, and that they will be kicked out of libraries, graded differently. That's a Soviet country.
That's not a Soviet country.
No, it's a Soviet-like country. In the Soviet Union, if you were to wear a hat of a dissident, they would disappear you. And now
are they getting disappeared?
Well,
or just told they can't go
no,
in the library?
This is the hold on. That's a that's an by the way,
no, I understand. I'm
that's
just
an
saying
introductory step. What you're saying is you're cheapening down what is now the gateway drug to Soviet totalitarian. Oh, it's okay. They can't go to the library. Oh, it's okay.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that you're falsely equivalent.
No, it's not equivalent. There are gradations of it. Of course, we are not yet at the Stalinistic level of Soviet Europe, but we are closer to that than people would ever realize. Where you can't wear this hat right here in a class without some teacher grading you down, without somebody calling you a terrible name or fearing for your safety. That's not a free society. And that's one of the reasons why Donald Trump is doing so well, because we're going to take this country back from these savages.
So now you call non-conservatives savages, and you're saying that
I said from the people that cancel us. Yes,
no, you did. You did not say. You said from these savages.
Yes, correct. If a professor grades you down for a different grade, they are a savage. If somebody decides to punch you in the face because you wear a Trump hat, you are a savage. If somebody goes after you and says, I'm going to fire you from a job because you support Donald Trump, you are a savage. Let me be as clear as I possibly can. If you are performing late-term abortion, you are a savage. If you're sex trafficking kids, you are a savage. You want me to give you more examples?
Well, you know what else you say? Firing people from their jobs for not being for being a conservative. Well, you know how many people Trump fired? Trump said in a rally the other day, he said, "Oh, I fired Mike Pence because he didn't agree with me." Is that not savage by your standards?
We're talking about an administration of somebody that doesn't agree with them. They're trying to just have a neutral viewpoint job of working at a library, and you get fired from your job. You want to talk about a false equivalency? Those are two completely different universes. Donald Trump should have people that agree with him around his administration. But if you're going to try to work as an engineer or a data scientist or work as a janitor or work as a police officer or a custodian, and you happen to have a view that Donald Trump is a good president, you get fired. Let me ask you a question. Do you know anybody that gets fired from their job for a Harris Wall sticker? Do you know anybody that gets fired from their job for having a gay pride flag? Anyone that gets fired from their job for having a Black Lives Matter flag? But I do know people that get fired for a job because of this hat or a thin blue line or even saying that America's or don't tread on me flag. And guess what? We as conservatives are not going to take this anymore, and we're sending a message this election season that free speech is respected, and just because you support Donald Trump does not mean that your livelihood is going to be eliminated.
Well, that's choices of individuals. No, that's choices of individuals.
Okay,
I understand.
We can keep going, but let me just say this: it's not the choice of a publicly funded university that you guys pay for to be able to punish their customers.
Well, appeal it. I'm sure.
They
I'm
have.
Sure, no,
Thank you very much.
take it further.
Are
take
you-
it further.
are-
I guarantee you.
No, you don't guarantee anything. You'd be surprised at how they say. Are you voting for Kamala?
I am.
Okay. What is her greatest?
Hey, free speech. Free speech.
Yeah, they have the freedom of speech to boo you. That's right.
Do I have the freedom of speech? Okay, so if I boo them, then it's an impediment of freedom of.
No, but I just gave you an open mic for 15 minutes. Let's just tell me, what is Kamala Harris's greatest accomplishment?
See, that's that question. You can't. Okay. The greatest accomplishment. That goes back to sort of establishing an extreme. I can't definitively say, oh, this is the greatest, though. Like, absolute.
Name an
greatest.
accomplishment of hers.
An accomplishment of her. She got in. She in when she was the Hey. Attorney General of California. She fought the insurance companies to decrease prices that they're not going to be price gouging. That's an accomplishment?
Wow. Okay. So that's worthy of your vote.
You support price gouging? I'm curious.
Well, no, I'm just curious. What has she done as vice president that makes you be like, that's my gal?
What is the vice president's the vice president is just president of the Senate. They don't have much.
Oh, that's interesting. If it's just a ceremonial role, why do we even have a VP?
Well, that's not the point. I'm saying
She was tasked to control the border. How is she done?
the vice president doesn't control the border.
They
There's
get
agencies.
they get portfolio projects from the president. She was given the portfolio project of the border. How is she done?
Again, she doesn't make any individual. I don't think she makes a top-down decision about the border.
She made a decision to reverse 50 Trump executive orders. Do you think Kamala Harris has done an objectively good job managing our border?
No.
Okay. I appreciate the honesty. Thank you.